Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Bootlegs, presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. This is your high school football show. It's mid-season time. I'm Tom Krager with the Tennessean, the high school sports editor here, and I brought together some friends to talk about the mid-season point of the 2020 high school football season. It's been a season of uncertainty, but hey, we've made it through 5 weeks. We're entering the sixth week, hence the mid-season report. I brought together the team I affectionately call Team Tennessee. I've got Michael Odom of the Jackson Sun here, Joe Spears, who's with the Daily News Journal in Murfreesboro, but helps us out for the Columbia Daily Herald with their coverage. I've got Kari Thompson with the Commercial Appeal in Memphis, Cecil Joyce from the Daily News Journal, Aaron Torres from the Knoxville News Sentinel, and George Robinson from the Clarksville Leaf Chronicle. Of course, y'all know George, y'all know Cecil, and y'all met Joe Spears last week. Guys, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
All right, guys. 5 weeks in, I think a lot of us kind of questioned if we'd make it this far. I think week 7 is kind of my point of no return. If we can make it through week 7, I think we're going to make it through it. It's going to be rocky. It's going to be, I think the playoffs are, to me, is a nightmare waiting to happen. But, we'll worry about that as we get closer. But it's mid-season time. We're going to talk about, across the state with all of our areas that we cover, we're going to talk about 4 subjects, okay? We're just going to work around here. I'm going to go by what's on my screen, starting with Michael Odom at the top left on my screen, and I'll work everyone around, and we'll go through the questions. Okay. Michael Odom, we're week 5. We're in week 6. You're in the Jackson Sun, so you've got the rural West Tennessee. All right. First question for us is, give me a hot take. We're halfway home. Give me a hot take for the second half of the season.
Many would have thought after last year this wouldn't really be a hot take, but I think Peabody wins 38 straight games and wins a 3rd straight Class 2A state title. Last year's team was led by Cooper Bogus, a Mr. Football winner, Jarrell Dixon, who's now at Army. That cast is now completely different. New quarterback in Sam Triggers, new running back in Khalid Ganaway. But I think this team has already put those pieces in place to make another run, even with a new cast of characters.
Okay, Michael, we're gonna label that lukewarm. That's not a true hot take. We're gonna go lukewarm on that one.
If you look at the amount of talent Peabody lost from last year, a lot of people said week 1 they're going to lose to Milan. Their 23-game winning streak's over, and they're going to have to rebuild. And it hasn't been a rebuild. I don't know if they're not.
And it makes pause. Good, that's our way of saying, warm take. We're gonna go with sorry, Michael, we're done. That's a lukewarm take. So you're gone off. You're froze for us. So we're gonna go Joe Spears with the Columbia Daily Herald. Joe, give me a hot take, please.
Mine would have to be, I think Columbia Central finishes 2nd in Region 5-5A. They got back on the winning track last week against Lincoln County after dropping 2 straight games in blowout fashion. But defensively, the Lions they're really good. They have a lot of talent on that side of the ball, and I think offensively, they have a new offensive weapon in Justin Buckman, who really showed out last week, 115 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. And I think this team has that talent to compete for that 2nd spot in the region. I think I've seen Shelbyville, and I think they can play with them. Page is having a down year. Lincoln County is actually playing well as well this year, and Central beat them last week. So I think they have a real good chance to finish 2nd in that region.
That's a better hot take. It's not sizzling hot, but it's a hot take. So especially when you consider what Page has done in that region and what Shelbyville has done. Obviously, they got a new coach in Coach Puckett there, but that's better. We're off to a better start. Kari Thompson with the Commercial Appeal. Keep it up. Give me a hot take.
All right, my hot take is that I think Covington is going to be the only public school from the Memphis area to make the Blue Cross rules this year. You got no Shelby County schools. That takes out a big chunk of my team.
That's lukewarm, man. Keep it up.
I mean, That's hot, man. That's hot. That's saying Houston's not gonna make it. That's saying Arlington's not gonna make it. You know what I'm saying? We got some heat on this. It's like mango habanero at Buffalo Wild Wings. It's hot, but not hot.
No, that's like a medium hot, folks. That's medium hot. That's not hot chicken in Nashville. That's for sure. That's especially when you look at how Houston and some of these teams have struggled, and how strong that the Williamson County teams is. A hot take, would have been like if Covington was the only team that made it to the championships. And that would mean ECS didn't make it. But it's a good try. It's about lukewarm though. That's better luck next time. George Robinson, let's get back on track. Give me a hot take.
Well, I don't know how hot my takes can be up here in Clarksville. I mean, Clarksville schools obviously don't win state championships in football. So I guess if I was going to make like the hottest take I can make, it would be Montgomery Central winning the Class 4A state title. Which isn't that's not my take at all. Actually, I do think that Montgomery Central will make the 4A playoffs. Despite not having played Springfield yet, they still have to play White House Heritage. They've already beat Portland, but they've lost to Creekwood. So I do think they'll make the playoffs, considering the fact that they got an entirely new offensive line. They have a brand new running back. Their quarterback returns in Logan Sykes, but they don't pass the ball at all. If they pass the ball 5 times in a game, I'll be surprised. But I do think for a team that went 7-3 last year and did not make the playoffs, I do think they'll be able to squeeze in the playoffs. So I don't know how much of a hot take that is, because it seems like you're being really, really strict on the hot takes. But that's the best I got here in Clarksville.
Well,
you gotta give me a break. I mean, Clarksville doesn't win state championships. So what kind of hot take am I gonna really have here?
Cecil, help me. Please shock me here. Give me something hot.
I'll give you something as hot as I can. And talking hot, we could be talking hot seat and Kent Hartsfield at Blackman. But my hot take is that not only will Blackman make the playoffs, Blackman will win a playoff game. Kent Hartsfield will get that team together. They have the talent to do it. They're going to finish 4th in the region, probably an upset, a number 1 seed, probably Mount Juliet in the first round of the playoffs, or they'll finish 3rd and beat a number 2 seed team. But, if you told me before the season started this would be a hot take, then I would said you're lying. But as of right now, that's a pretty hot take to say that Blackman's going to get it together, not only make the playoffs, but win a playoff game.
Folks, a hot take. There it is. And he said before we went on camera, he wouldn't have a hot take. Folks, that's a hot take. 1-4 Blackman. Lost to Warren County. That, my friend, that's a hot take. We appreciate that. That's where we want to go. Aaron Torres, let's keep it moving here. Give me a hot take in Knoxville.
So it's not a hot take to say Alcoa will win its 6th straight title. But my hot take is that Alcoa won't allow a point the rest of the season on its way to a 6th straight title.
Wow. Can I take you up on that? Wow. Yeah. See, folks, that's how you make a very, very cool take and make it hot. Michael Odom. See, that's where you should have went with that. Kari, that's where you should have went with that.
I should have said Covington gonna beat Alcoa. That's what I should have said.
I mean,
here's my hot take, folks. A year after not making the playoffs for the first time in decades, Brentwood Academy not only will go to the playoffs, they will reach Cookeville in the championship game, and they will beat their good old rival, Montgomery Bell Academy, in the D2 AAA football state championship game. Sorry, Macaulay. Sorry, Baylor. Sorry, Tommy at Christian Brothers and MUS. That's my hot take.
That's a little lukewarm itself, folks. What do y'all think?
Yes,
No.
lukewarm. Yes. Brentwood Academy. Would you
Didn't
say
make the playoffs
last
a year
year?
ago.
It was the first time in a long time they hadn't made this the playoffs,
Mhm.
and now you're saying they're going to win the state title.
Now, I will say
They're
I
gonna
agree
make
with
the
you.
playoffs. And I
He
told you
did
they're
say
gonna
it's
play.
going to be an all Nashville D2 AAA title game, so we got to give them that credit.
I
Because that's a
told
normal
you they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to win the whole thing. I gave you more than this. You know, I told you not only told you they're going to make the championship game and win it. I told you who they're going to beat.
That's
I
good.
I like the
That is a good
sorry
take.
Baylor and
We'll take
sorry
right.
Macaulay thing. I do like that.
Biggest surprise of 2020. Okay, Michael, this is your chance. What you got?
It's got to be Jackson Christian going 5-0. Yes, this team has a state championship, but that was back in 2006. Nobody knew a lot about this offense because, yes, they returned some receivers, but they had 3 people vying for a quarterback position, and there were a lot of unknowns there. Aaron Smith is really taking over that quarterback position and beating teams and beating them badly, and they got their signature win last week, 16-14 over USJ.
And that right there is the biggest surprise, probably a USJ team that most people think will be vying for that D2 single A state championship, correct?
Yes.
Still think Davidson Academy is the team to beat in 2A, but USJ is probably that next thing right there up until that upset. Joe Spears, biggest surprise. What do you have?
I would say Mount Pleasant starting off just horribly this year. I mean, the Tigers, they just have not had a good year after going 8-3 last year. Started off the year with a 1-point loss to Summertown, lost by 7 to Richland, and then lost by 36 to Fayetteville. And they've been off these last couple of weeks due to COVID-related issues, but they're really struggling. And I mean, this was supposed to be a pretty good team this year, and they're not playing well at all.
Very good. Kari Thompson.
I'm going with Arlington, sitting there at 3-2. They were right there with ETS. They were up 15-0 at halftime, then gave up 23 unanswered and caught that L. And then this week they lost 43-29 to Houston, but they were right there. They just again gave up 21 points in the fourth quarter. So if Arlington can figure out how to finish some ball games, they're going to be all right.
Another surprise, I think, for me with you down there. This isn't my surprise, but one surprise I've seen in Memphis, the fact that MUS is 3-2 and all 3 losses are COVID wins, or all 3 wins are COVID wins, is a bit of a surprise. Cecil Joyce, what do you have as a surprise?
Well, it goes back to my hot take. It's Blackman football. I don't think anybody was surprised at 1-3 when they started, because they started 1-3 last year. If you look at Ravenwood and Alcoa and Independence, that's tough teams to have to play in the early going. It's the way they lost to those teams that was a surprise. And then you got last week's loss to Warren County. Now, granted, no offense to Warren County fans, they're 5-0, and this is the best season they've had, and dating back to at least my time at the D&J in the 90s. But you never expect a Blackman or an Oakland or a Riverdale to lose to a Warren County. So that's a huge surprise. That surprise is why Blackman is my hot take to make the playoffs. There's talent on the field. They have a good quarterback in senior Drew Beam. They have some really talented receivers. The defense is giving up too much. There's too many sloppy plays, too many penalties. Again, I think it's something Kit Hartsfield will straighten out, but so far it's been a huge disappointment and a huge surprise.
I would say right now our biggest surprise up here in Clarksville is Rossview's 2-1 start. I don't think anybody really expected that, particularly the way they've played in the past couple of weeks. They shut out Station Camp last Friday. 2 weeks ago, they beat Northeast, that has a very, very talented offense. They beat them 7-4. So, defensively, Rossview has played extremely well. They haven't allowed a touchdown in 8 straight quarters. They got a brand new quarterback in Garrett DeMille. He's played well. He's a big, tall kid, can throw the ball. But right now, I'd say Rossview's 2-1 start is the biggest surprise in Clarksville.
Mine would be that Carter is 4-1. Now, one of those wins is a COVID win last week against Halls. But officially being 4-1, that's more wins that they had all of last season. And this is with a new coach in Justin Presley, who is being a new coach in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, he didn't have any time at all. He was hired in January. He didn't have any spring practice. He didn't really have summer workouts until, May and June was the first time he met his team. And they lost to Ray County in week 1, but they lost in overtime. So he almost upset Ray County in his first game of the season. And now they've won 3 straight games. And including in week 3, they beat Lenore City 48-28.
Must-see player. Who's the one, if you could watch one player this season, who's the one player that you're telling fans you got to go see this player this year? Michael Odom. Everyone unmute themselves because
the easy pick here would be Ty Simpson at Westview, as he's a 4-star recruit. But I'm going to go with Rivers Hunt, the quarterback at Hardin County. He's thrown for over 1,200 yards so far this season. He was the Class 4A Mr. Football semifinalist last year. And he's just putting on a show. One of his receivers, Caden Pope, has an offer from Tennessee. Their big recruit, Hudson Wolf, is out for the season after back surgery. But they're still putting up big numbers offensively.
okay, that was better.
Michael, what happened to Westview last week?
What happened to what?
What happened to Westview last week?
They had less than 75 yards of offense. Covington's very good.
All right, let's see. We got trash talk going on here. Memphis versus Jackson. I'm not gonna do that.
I'm going to do the better test for Covington.
I'll trash talk everyone. I'm an equal opportunity trash talker when it comes to our team. Talk to me, Joe Spears. Give me a must-see player to watch in the second half of the season.
Mine's a quarterback too. It was hard to pick between Destin Wade and Jackson Campbell. I've actually seen a lot of Destin Wade. I've covered Summit twice this year. Just looking at what he's done running the ball. He hasn't thrown the ball well since the first 2 weeks of the season. But running the ball, I mean, teams really don't have an answer for him. He's a big kid, 6'3", 6'4". I mean, he's tall, he's strong, he runs the ball at will, and the Summit offense really runs through him. And I think he's going to be a big reason why they make another deep playoff run. And once he gets his brother back from injury, it's only going to help his numbers go up, especially in the passing game.
I think that also it could hurt him too, because his brother comes back. His brother's going to get some touches that he's not getting right now. So we'll
maybe.
See
I think they'll probably use Keaton more on the defensive side of the ball, though. That's where he makes his name.
Well, he had over like 1,100 yards rushing too. But the thing is, I think everyone. I was looking more forward to Keaton on offense this year, and Destin has really stepped forward and become an offensive. An offensive juggernaut.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kari Thompson, Memphis commercial.
There's not much of a debate here in Memphis. I think you got to go see Dallin Hayden over at Christian Brothers, man. I mean, you put him up against anybody. You put him up against Houston. You put him up against MUA. You put him up against Bartlett. He's getting at least 200 yards and 3 touchdowns every game. I mean, it's just simple.
Okay. Easy pick. I'm glad you could come through with an easy pick.
Yeah.
Cecil Joyce, player to watch. Who we got?
I'm going to go off the normal grid here a little bit, and I'm going to go Ray Banner from Laverne High School. The kid's got 1,006 yards rushing in 5 games, 14 touchdowns. He's well on pace for 2,000 and close to 30 TDs on the season. And the schedule, with the exception of Cane Ridge and Smyrna, would be pretty favorable for him to do that. He's a bruiser. He's averaging 30 carries a game, but he also has breakaway speed, which is why his yardage has increased a lot this year, because instead of getting 10 and 15-yard runs, when he finds a hole, he's getting breakaway runs for 60 and 70-yard touchdowns. This kid is really explosive and fun to watch.
George Robinson, give me a must-see player.
Well, I just covered him last week, actually. Corbin Howard, the wide receiver at Kenwood. He's a very explosive player. He's not a big kid. he's kind of a late bloomer physically. He was about 5'5" and 130 pounds last year. Now he's 5'10" and probably 160. So he really grew a lot over the past 6 months, and he's always had the speed, and certainly that's what Kenwood likes about him. He plays that X position in their offense outside the numbers as a wideout. And Jalen Washington, Kenwood's quarterback, has a pretty strong arm, and when he throws it to Corbin, he just lets it go. And Corbin will run under just about anything. And he had over 100 yards catching last week, and in Kenwood's win over Northwest, they scored 61 points. Corbin had, I think, 116 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. He's got close to 400 yards already in 3 games for Kenwood. So he's been a lot of fun to watch. And Kenwood usually has those kind of athletes where, they're fun to watch, and he's certainly one of them.
Okay, Aaron Torres, give me a player to watch.
I'm going with Jordan Potts, the quarterback at Powell. It's his first season as a starter. He's only a sophomore, and he's already thrown for 1,290 yards, 14 touchdowns, and is completing 61% of his throws. And in his first 2 starts, he won the game for Powell with the last-second touchdown pass in each of the first 2 starts. The first one against Beach, which was a big game for them, and then against Anderson County, throwing the game-winning touchdown pass on a 4th and goal, and scrambling and making nothing out of something on that play against Anderson County. And so if Powell's going to make a deep playoff run, he's somebody to watch for.
And I think that play was like the play that won against Anderson County, I believe, was like the Max Preps play of the week nationally, I think. Something crazy like that. So huge play there for him. I'm going to cheat because I'm the boss, so I'm going to cheat once in a while. I'm going to give you 2 because I didn't want to give too much. I don't want to focus too much on Warren County, but I want to mention this kid, C.J. Taylor, a quarterback, but he's really a running back for him. Already has 924 yards rushing, 13 touchdowns. He's thrown for 355 yards. I think he was 0-2 in that upset win over Blackman. And, he's a guy, if he continues, folks, he's going to be a dark horse for that Mr. Football. I really believe that if they shock another team, he'd have to be in consideration. He might be the best player in Region 3-6A. Sorry, Jordan James and Isaiah Horton and, Drew Beam and anyone else over at Riverdale with Javon Nelson and all that stuff. This kid is phenomenal. It'll be interesting to see what he does against the Riverdales and the Oaklands and the Cookvilles coming up. But I'm also going to go with Jake Brenningstool, the tight end at Ravenwood. He's committed to Clemson. He's the number 1 recruit in the state, according to 247 Sports Composite. I know you're saying, well, of course he is the player to watch. He's number 1 recruit in the state. Well, he's caught 15, I think around 15 passes, 343 yards, 6 touchdowns. But here's the other thing about him. He's now being asked to play on special teams, and he recovered an onside kick and returned it for a touchdown against Pulaski Academy out of Arkansas, that team that never punts and onside kicks every time. Then he's also playing like a defensive end linebacker type that, in positions that he's never been asked to play at Ravenwood. So that I think you have to really. I thought about Junior Colson, but Jake Brenningstool's really done a lot for the Raptors this year on a team that of course faces IMG this week. All right, one last thing. We're at the Midway Park biggest game left. Give me, obviously in our midseason report we'll have 3 to 5 games listed. But give me one of your biggest games left to watch this year. Michael Odom, you're up.
I think it's got to be week 10 when Hardin County, who's ranked number 1 in my Jackson area rankings, makes the trip to Milan and their newly renovated Johnny Hale Stadium. Milan opened the season number 2 in my rankings. They're currently 3rd. That's going to be a great offensive output when you look at Rivers Hunt, John Whitley, Caden Pope for Hardin County, and then Milan's got Jidarius Easley and Anthony Brown. They've got some really great players on that team. I think it's going to be a marquee matchup in West Tennessee.
Okay. Go Spears.
That'll be a good one. I'm deciding on Summit Shelbyville or Central Shelbyville. I think Summit wins that game against Shelbyville easily, but I think the Central Shelbyville game in Week 11 will decide who finishes second in that region. So I would go with that one. Last year it was a close game. Shelbyville winning, I think, by 9. I think this Central team is better than it was last year, and I think, like I predicted earlier, I think they finished second in the region because of that win.
Kari Thompson.
Well, if you would have asked me yesterday, I would have said Briarcrest and Christian Brothers, but Christian Brothers has COVID cases and virtual learning for 2 weeks, so we're not quite sure when that game will be scheduled. So I will go with a game that we are pretty sure is going to happen, and that is PCS and Los Angeles next week. That's a rematch of the D2AA semifinal.
Good. And I talked to Tommy McDaniel, and I think they are going to reschedule that. I'm like you, I haven't heard a date. Cecil Joyce, biggest game remaining.
Well, this is an easy one. October 16th, week 8. It's Oakland at Riverdale. This will decide the region championship, I do believe, unless Warren County is a lot better than we actually do think right now. This is the Battle of the Borough. It's been the biggest game in Murfreesboro since 1972 when the two schools opened. This year is probably the best matchup between these two teams in at least a decade. Oakland's been the king of the hill, for several years now under Coach Kevin Creasy. Will Creasy's got this Warriors team ranked in the state. They have a great defensive front. It should be a great matchup, and I think there may be more fans there than the COVID limitations right now, is my guess.
Ooh, that's a hot take. That's a hot take at the end. George Robinson, Clarksville Leaf Chronicle. Give me a top game coming that's left in the Clarksville area.
Well, this game isn't this coming week, but the following week here, Clarksville and Northeast. I think there's really only 2 spots in region 7 5A that are going to be occupied by Clarksville schools that make the playoffs. I think the team obviously that everybody chases every year in this region is Henry County, but Dyer County's the way they've played the past few years, they've put themselves in a position to be that number 2 team. So really, you're talking who's going to be the third and fourth team out of that region. And I think Clarksville and Northeast are the 2 schools that'll, sort of be vying for that. So this game is, has some added importance with that. Obviously Northeast can score with the best of them, but they got to be motivated to do that. They weren't motivated against Rossview when all they could muster was 2 safeties in that 7-4 loss. So, Clarksville's played some really good schools so far. They played Stewart's Creek and got beat pretty bad, and then they played Henry County last week and lost 55-7. So the Northeast game for Clarksville this coming week is going to be huge for both schools.
Good job there. And Aaron Torres, give me one.
It's easily Powell at West on October 9th, so week 8. That game, both teams will more than likely be undefeated going into that game, and that game will determine the winner of that region. But also it'll give us a chance to see which team is the best, because West is ranked number 1 in the latest AP poll in Class 5A, and Powell is ranked number 2. And these teams could easily meet again in the playoffs in the quarterfinals. Last season, Powell beat West 21-20 in the regular season, but then West beat Powell in the quarterfinals. So this will be a chance to see which team is the best, at least for now.
This, from what I was just looking at their stuff today, Powell seems to be that team that can score a lot of points, whereas West kind of has that defense. I mean, is that how you see that game? Can Powell's offense score against West defense and vice versa?
Yeah, I mean, so last week against Oak Ridge, West didn't allow an offensive point. Oak Ridge scored on a defensive fumble recovery, but West's defense has been incredible this season, and Powell and West's offense can also score. And part of the problem that Powell has had is they're averaging about 38 points a game this season, but they're also giving up about 28 points a game.
Great job there. I really struggled to give y'all the biggest game to put on the bootleg here. Thought about NBA Brentwood Academy, but I already told you they're going to meet again anyway. So does the regular season really matter? They're not even the same region anymore. Thought about maybe Hillsboro Pearl. It's a non-region game, whatever. What I'm going to give you is Beach at Gallatin, October 23rd. I think this is your region championship there. It was a great game last year at Beach. This year they go to Gallatin. I think there will be a large crowd there. I hope they all have masks on, but I think this will be a great game. I think this will be your region championship, and it's good. I think it's a big thing there because the loser plays Summit maybe in that second round if you're looking ahead to playoffs. Playoffs? Yeah, we're talking about playoffs a little bit. So, folks, I want to thank my team for joining us. This was a fun time. It was good to see the bunny made an appearance. Michael will work on those hot takes a little more. And, but for the first time, it wasn't bad. Cecil, I was worried about your hot take, but you made it sizzle a little bit there. Appreciate that. And Kari, a little around lukewarm, maybe a little warmer than lukewarm, but you'll get there. George, we'll give you something. We'll give you a hot take next time. But everyone, thanks for joining us on a special statewide edition of the Bootleg presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. I've been your host, Tom Krager with the Tennessean. And we'll see you next week with some of these guys will not be here, but I appreciate them making the appearance this week. Thank y'all.